Okay, today we're going to be looking at Eagle, Idaho, and it is really going to give you guys what it's actually like to live in one of the most misunderstood suburbs of of Boise. Now, if you haven't watched the Meridian suburb video that we did just like this one, definitely go watch this after the Eagle video. But we're actually starting out our driving tour in Meridian because I want you guys to see what it's actually like to live in these suburbs. And so part of that is seeing how close Meridian is. So we just left the Target, as you guys can see, in Meridian, and I'm gonna go down the hill to show you guys just how close Meridian is to Eagle and give you guys a lay of the land. Now, we're getting on Eagle Road right now, and we're about to cross Chinden Road. So this is where Target is, kind of North Meridian. We're on the border of Boise, Meridian, and Eagle. So this is where they all kind of converge. And as we go down the hill, you guys should have a very good just view of one of the big differences with Eagle, Idaho compared to other suburbs. And it's just the overall look. So as we go throughout driving and touring everything in the Eagle area during this video, keep an eye out just for that feel, that look. We talk about this a lot, but I want to show you guys these suburbs so you can actually get a feeling for what they are, what they look like, what they would feel like to live here. Now we're coming over the hill. So this is the hill into Eagle, and you'll notice obviously the foothills and mountains as we come over this hill. There's also all of the different trees straight ahead of us to the right, to the left, and that's because the Boise River runs all the way through Eagle. You have a green belt, and we're going to stop there today during this video. So it's going to be a mix of driving map videos to put the two together to connect the driving side and seeing these things to then connecting that to where that is on the map, so that you guys, as you're doing your research, you can see those things. And we're also going to be getting out at certain locations in Eagle to give you guys a full, broad picture of what it is like to live here in the Eagle area. Right now, we're in the bottom. So to the left, you have Banbury. There's two rivers. You have Lakemore to the right. And so some of the most popular neighborhoods in Eagle, these are the older ones. So they have a lot more mature trees. The homes are a little bit older. They're also just going to be more expensive, which is going to be a theme of looking at Eagle today. Is you'll be seeing a big difference in price. To the right, you have Crave Kitchen and Bar, one of my favorite restaurants in the entire Boise area. There's a movie theater right here. There's an ice cream place. There's a gym. There's a swig. So you have this little area right here once you're coming into Eagle to do a few little things, restaurants, bars, movie theaters, things like that. Take note as we're driving too, because I'm sure I'll talk about it a little bit. And if you watch the stereotypes video, it'll kind of come together, but keep an eye on the cars that we pass. What cars are driving by as we walk around downtown Eagle. Look at the landscape and look at the finishes. You'll even notice just to the right, like this little retail center area, you can tell the landscaping is just elevated. So this is the part that you're going to continue to see in this video. Is Eagle is the Beverly Hills of Boise, Idaho. It's whatever city you live in, just pick the nicest suburb or city or area. And this is Eagle to the Boise area. You're gonna have more wealth here, more expensive homes. And we're gonna kind of, as this video goes on, hopefully give you guys an understanding. You get to actually see these things, but break down some of the misconceptions, some of the stereotypes, how real it is. And I talk about it a lot, but the suburb you choose, it's important to choose based on if you think you're gonna live there, if you're gonna fit in the culture, the things you can't really Google, which is why I wanted to make this series, these videos, to give you guys that picture. Even now, driving down Eagle Road, so Eagle Road, again, the most busy road in the entire Boise area, you can tell just how much bigger the trees are here, how much better the landscaping is. Franz Whitty, who does a lot of the nicest landscaping in the Treasure Valley, they do amazing landscaping, and you guys will really get to see it at the very end of this video, because we're gonna end this video off, and I'd say one of the most Eagle communities. It's a community that is in Eagle that you will not find in any other community, and Franz Whitty does the landscaping in there, and you guys are gonna be blown away if you haven't seen the community we end up in at the end. But from Target to Eagle, you can see how close it is. And the other thing about this video is we're actually filming this later in the day. So right now it's 2 p.m. And hopefully as this video goes on, you'll get to see some of the traffic, some of the things, which is a big con or difference of Eagle compared to some of the other suburbs in the Eagle area. Now, as we get into, we're gonna head to downtown Eagle. When I get to downtown Eagle, is when I'll give you guys a more of an overview of Eagle, kind of just a broader picture of Eagle. And then as this video gets going, I want to give you more and more detail and kind of slowly narrow the big picture down to the smaller details of what it feels like to live in the Eagle, Idaho area. We're coming up on, you can park on the right, and they actually added a parking lot on the left. So this is the Boise River. So right here to the left is actually where I proposed to my wife. So you know it's a beautiful area if I chose this spot to do that, but it's also just a huge access point to get to the Boise River. So whether you live in North Meridian or you live in Eagle, you can see how close this is to those two different spots to go ride your bike, to go walk the Boise River, to go swim in the Boise River, to go just put your lawn chair out and just hang out in the water. There's a number of spots along the river that have more sandy or pebbly beaches, so you can just spend some time. And then we're also going to step out later in this video, and after we make a loop, and we're going to get out. I want to show you guys the Boise River, walk it, and I'll talk about all the things that we're passing right now and give you guys the picture of kind of what we're going through. But this is the main area of Eagle right here. So this isn't the downtown area. We're coming up on the downtown area. This is the other popular spot of the Eagle area, and we'll talk about all of the things that are in this area once we get back around to here and get out of the car and actually walk around and show you guys. But I want you guys for now to just keep an eye on everything that you're saying. Keep an eye out for the feel, what feels different, because as we post these videos, hopefully you guys are able to watch Eagle and then go watch Meridian and then go watch Kuna and compare those differences. Kind of use these as a scouting trip without having to, pay $1,000 to come out here and actually do a scouting trip. Right here is where Eagle meets State Street, Highway 55, Highway 44. It gets called all those different things because technically Eagle is Highway 55. And if you take a right here, it remains Highway 55, and then you take a left to get up to McCall. But it's also State Street into Boise and Highway 44 going from here, Eagle, and it connects you to Star, and then it connects you to Middleton, and we'll be driving down that later. But also note this intersection, the traffic. So right now, there's actually not as much construction as there has been over the last few months. And again, it's only 2 p.m. right now. So once the day gets going, it starts getting more to 4 or 5 p.m. This intersection in Eagle, and what you guys will see later in the day, you start to see a lot more traffic. You start to get, stuck at lights. You start to have to deal with, longer commute times. And so these are the types of things that I want you guys to experience in these videos, actually get to see it. You're seeing it live right now, right? So this isn't me telling you like, oh, the traffic's bad in Eagle. You guys actually get to sit here with me at this wonderful red light and see all of the cars passing by, see how long we have to wait at each stoplight. On the other side of State Street right here is an Albertsons. There's a Cafe Rio. There's a few little restaurants. There's a McDonald's. You have Functional Medicine of Idaho to the left, so a little doctor's office. There's a Zamzo's, which is kind of our lawn care gardening store here. So a few other things in Eagle. And Eagle is one of those places that at one point was the small suburb of the Boise, Idaho area. It was similar to what Star is now, or Kuna. There wasn't a ton of people that lived out here. The homes have always been a little bit more expensive out here, but now it's to the point to where it's one of the busier suburbs in the Boise area. And just by, the amount of people out here for a small suburb, you guys can kind of see it's gotten a lot busier. There's also the good side of it too, which is there's a lot more things to do, right? You have a lot more restaurants, a lot more stores and amenities, which I know a lot of people love. Now, as we pull into downtown, we're gonna walk around and give you guys, a full overview. I just want you guys to kind of get that feel, capture that feel. But there's some really important things that we're gonna talk about here downtown that I think really start to narrow these things down in Eagle, encapsulate what Eagle is all about. But let's jump out of the car, head to downtown, and see what Eagle is all about. Okay, now we're on the map. First, want to give you guys just an overview of Eagle, where it is in relation to everything else. So obviously Eagle's here, you have Boise down here, you have Meridian, Star, Kuna's all the way down here, and then Nampa, Middleton, Caldwell over here. From downtown Eagle is where a lot of things are going to be referred to as, but you have 15, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, into Boise. The village at Meridian, for those of you who have watched the last video, is right here. So from downtown Eagle, you're about 15-ish minutes, sometimes 10, sometimes 25. It just depends on the traffic. Now, when I break down Eagle, we're gonna see later in the video, you're gonna have kind of this upper area of Eagle up here, and then you're gonna have the lower part down here. So you have your foothills, and then you have your Boise River right here, okay? That will be kind of important to just kind of stay on the map. We'll go over it later in the video as well. But for now, we're starting, and I'll get a little closer for you guys. So we're starting in Meridian. So we started here. So you guys saw us drive from the Target in Meridian. We came down Eagle Road. Right here is the foothills. So we came down that hill. Right here is where Crave, the movie theater, that little shopping center area is. Two Rivers that we drove by is right here. And then you have Mesa River Ranch and a bunch of other smaller communities right here. These are the kind of bougie Boise River, big trees, a lot of landscaping neighborhoods. As we're coming into downtown Eagle is right here. So we didn't go very far in the first section, but want you guys to get kind of a lay of the land of where everything's at. You can see from where we started in Target, it was just a few more miles down here to get to the village, to get to Costco, just to give you guys more perspective, is right here in Meridian. And then you have Fred Meyer, Winco right here. You have Eagle Island State Park. And so you can see that if this section right here took us, 10 minutes or so, that same distance, pretty much no matter what direction you go, is going to be about 10 minutes to try and give you guys a little bit of perspective on kind of where we're at. You guys saw downtown Eagle, and then from where we're going to downtown Eagle, I'll zoom in more so you guys can kind of see some of these details more. So downtown is right here. Now, as we're about to leave downtown, you guys saw, Albertsons right here. You saw the Boise River. You saw some of the things on the side of the lights here. We're going to drive through one of these neighborhoods right here to give you guys a perspective on some of Central Eagle and talk about the more affordable housing in Eagle, what that looks like, how Eagle is not just, this big bougie neighborhood. Then we're going to go up Eagle Road, which eventually goes up here into the canyons. And the canyons up here, as a kid, I used to go over to the Eagle Canyons, and we would put glow sticks on golf balls and hit them into the canyon at night. It was really fun. So fun things to do up here. You have some vineyards up here. A huge neighborhood we drive by and talk about later is right here. Then we're going to take Beacon Light. So you'll hear me talk about it, but these are kind of the back roads that you guys want to know about if you're looking at Eagle, because these are the ones that I say are more important when you actually live in the area versus Highway 44, 55 State Street, right along here, your main thoroughway. So downtown through this little area, up Eagle Road, along Beacon Light, and then we're going to get back on Highway 55 and just go to Dry Creek Ranch. When we get to Dry Creek Ranch, we're going to drive through the different sections up by the estates, and then we're going to turn around and come back down 55. And as we get towards 55, you'll hear me talk about Winco, which is right here. You have Home Depot, and the border of Boise and Eagle is kind of right in this area. So this is kind of where you start going from Eagle to Boise, but you have a bunch of stuff in this area right here. The proposed Costco was up in here. It got denied, but I'm sure at some point it's going to get approved. So in the next few years, I'm sure at some point this Costco right here is going to get approved. Now, when we go from downtown up Beacon Light over to Dry Creek and back, as we're coming, we'll take a back down 55 and we're going to stop at the Boise River Greenbelt. This whole stretch from here to here is where the bulk of your stuff in Eagle is. So you have your restaurants, you have your fast food, you have your Lifetime Fitness, you have this that gets you to downtown Eagle. So this section right here is really your entertainment, your grocery stores, your restaurants in the Eagle area. Everything this direction starts to just be houses. And we'll talk about this later in the video after we get done with the Boise River. But want you guys to know that as we're driving through this, keep an eye out on the landscaping, keep an eye out on the traffic, the drive times, things like that. And also just gives you perspective on kind of where we're at in the map. And to zoom out and give you guys a little bit different perspective, you guys can see Northeast Boise right here. So that border is right here. And we're just driving, a few miles each way. All of these grids in Boise are 1 mile each. So that little section there is 1 mile. This little section right here is 1 mile. This little section right here is 1 mile. In Eagle, it gets a little bit different, but you guys can still see kind of the gridded patterns. And so far, we're only going to be covering this amount. But let's get back in the car, let's hop up, go to Dry Creek Ranch, and then we're gonna hop out at the Boise River Greenbelt, and I'm gonna walk down the Greenbelt a little bit and talk about kind of the city center and everything there is in Eagle. Okay, now we're walking around downtown Eagle. To my left, you have the Old State Saloon, which I'm gonna talk about here in a second because there's some controversy here in the Eagle area. But to my right, I feel like this encapsulates Eagle pretty well. So you have some, boutiques, restaurants, a kids book store there. But above this, you have condos, and that might not sound like much, but in Eagle, these condos are $1.1 million to $2 million for a 1,500 square foot to 2,300 square foot condominium here in downtown Eagle. So it gives you the picture of kind of price points, culture, what there is, or what the home value is here, right? You're not gonna find that in downtown Meridian, a $2 million condo, but in Eagle you are, because that's a lot of the culture. Now the Old State Saloon, which is right there, that is owned by Mark Fitzpatrick. That's funny, people waving, getting on camera. But that saloon in June has a straight Pride Month. So instead of Gay Pride Month, it's Straight Pride Month. So he'll give out free drinks to people who bring in their significant other. If you're a straight male or straight female, there's a certain day where you get a free drink or a discount. And so little things like that in the Eagle area, I think just show kind of the culture of Eagle. Now on the opposite side of this, and we'll talk about it more in the video, but in the Eagle area, as it's gotten bigger, I'd say it's gotten a little bit more of a mix of everything else. So it's not just what I described with the Old State Saloon. It's a mix of left and right, a little bit more purple. But with the Old State Saloon, that's the first restaurant that I would say I would talk about where it's a little bit healthier, right? They have gluten-free options, more organic options, and there's a few more in Eagle area that we'll talk about later. You find a lot more of that in the Eagle area. People who are active, they're riding their bikes, they're walking on the Boise River, they're going to healthier restaurants. Versus other suburbs, that's not going to be as much of a priority as it is in the Eagle, Idaho area. So give you guys an overview too of just that, is it kind of relates, is when you're in Eagle, you're looking at the outdoor feel, you're looking at the beauty, right? The beautiful trees, the beautiful buildings, the beautiful landscape. You have your foothills with your hiking, you have your green belt along the Boise River. So it's a lot of activities, it's a lot of beauty. And I feel like that is a huge draw and why it's the most expensive suburb in the entire Boise area, other than maybe the north end of Boise. The other thing you get with Eagle is a little bit of that traffic that we talked about, but you also get kind of a mix of that bigger town feel with a small town charm. So as you guys can see, like the downtown area here, similar to the downtown area of Meridian, but this is all that there is in the Eagle area. So you kind of have that small town community feel, that small town charm, and with the bigger city amenities. And as you guys saw how close we are to Meridian, you have Spitfire Tacos down here. You have a few other restaurants, a few other boutiques that you're just not gonna always find this type of feel in the other communities. Now we're gonna hop onto the map. I wanna show you guys, again, to relate these things that we're talking about from seeing them in person, looking at what we're looking at, to looking at a map, because a lot of you guys, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the maps, you're looking at Zillow, you're looking at realtor.com, you're going on Google Maps and kind of getting a lay of the land. So it's so good to be able to get these main roads and put the maps and what you do in research to person as if you guys were doing a scouting trip. But before we do that, I just want to say, reach out to me. As I go through this video, there are going to be things that we don't talk about that I may have missed or that are hard for me to relate to your specific situation, right? I try to make these videos the most helpful for everybody, but reach out to me, shoot me a text, and me and my team will take care of you. We'll get those questions answered. I got into real estate to help people, and at the end of the day, we always put people first and we want what's best for you. Our goal is to see if these suburbs, Boise as a whole, is actually a good fit for you, and go through those details. We will always be honest and we will tell you the reality of living here, even if it means bordering the line of breaking some rules. But you guys are the most important thing. Let's hop to the map, and then we're gonna head to some of the coolest parts of Eagle out in the mountains. Okay, now you guys have seen everything from up here, Dry Creek Ranch, around, and then now we're back on the Boise River Greenbelt to give you guys that perspective again. And now from where we're going, the Boise River Greenbelt up, we're gonna take the highway down to here. Right before we get to Linder, I'm going to take you guys through some neighborhoods right here to give you guys more perspective on some of the communities out in Eagle, separate from the central ones that, you know, more affordable housing in this area. We're going to come over and go through one of the nicest neighborhoods, and then we're going to end up out in this area to show you a really, really cool neighborhood. But that's the route we're taking. I want to talk to you guys about things that obviously we can't always show on video all the time, and kind of narrow things down to give you perspective on where we're at. So again, you have Winco right here, you have Fred Meyer right here, you have Costco right here. So from everything in Eagle, to give you guys, you know, an idea of kind of how far things are, keep an eye out on how long it takes us to get from the Boise River Greenbelt to all of these neighborhoods in Eagle. Because I would say in the Eagle area, this section of the map along Star and the Boise River is one of the more popular places to live or buy homes now. A lot of people moving here are looking out in this area. This is where a lot of new construction is, other than Dry Creek Ranch up in the corner that we went and looked at. The rest of it down here, kind of in the central spot in Eagle, this is a lot of resale homes. You're not gonna have much new construction. And so keeping an eye out on everything over in this area is important for you guys. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, everything from this point over, there's almost no groceries, there's very few gas stations, there's no commercial amenities or restaurants. So the farther you get from this downtown Eagle area, the farther away you're gonna be from all of the things you want to do. And I keep that as an important piece, because what we talk about a lot in Eagle is just all the amenities, all the things you have in this area. But if you're living out over here, now you're using the stuff in Star, which is important to learn about at that point. You're starting to use more of the stuff in Meridian over here. And so want you guys to keep that in mind as we drive out into this area. Now, as we drive from the Greenbelt down 55, up, over, down and up, there's some things we're gonna pass by that we're not gonna be able to see or show you guys or talk about. So right here is Riverstone, which is a very popular little neighborhood, kind of a more luxury neighborhood. You have Eagle Island State Park right here. You have another little pocket right here, Bald Eagle Point. It's pretty much sold out now, but you guys can see Bald Eagle Point borders the highway, so you get a lot of that highway traffic that we talk about. Riverstone is a little bit off the beaten path, so if I erase this line right here, you can see that there's these two little roads before you get to Riverstone, and it borders this Boise River area. We're also gonna not be able to get to see some of the things, but right here where we drive through is Legacy. And then down here in this little pocket is Eagledale by Tresidio Homes. Biltmore has a few homes in there. That's becoming a very popular neighborhood. We're also gonna drive by Eagle Ridge by PLH. We're gonna drive by Millstone Farms, which is right here. There's a few CBH communities. You have Stag's Crossing right here. And then you have Homestead right here, just to give you guys perspective on all of these new neighborhoods, Riverstone being here, that are how they're all pocketed right in this area, to give you guys that perspective on the map. But let's hop back in the car, go from the Greenbelt, pay attention to the traffic again right here, and we're gonna take Highway 44 up and over and end in one of the coolest communities, the picture perfect Eagle community that you can't find in any other suburb. Okay, now we're back to downtown. You guys kind of have a lay of the land, know where we're at, how far everything is from Eagle. Gonna head out of downtown Eagle, obviously give you guys a little bit more views of this downtown Eagle area. And we're gonna be heading to Dry Creek Ranch, which is one of the most popular areas of Eagle by far as places to live. You're up in the foothills, so you guys will start to get to see some of the beauty of the Eagle area. Spitfire Tacos right here on the right. So you can, they have some amazing tacos, and their breakfast burritos are absolutely outstanding. So if you guys are visiting the Eagle area, definitely suggest stopping by Spitfire Tacos. Another few, antique jewelry places down here. And I'm gonna try and get onto Eagle Road and take the back route so that we can see as much of the Eagle area as possible to give you guys the full picture of what it's like to live here. But right now, what we're driving through is essentially the older part of Eagle. So similar to every suburb, it's almost the same. The central part of every suburb is going to be older, a little bit more out of date, older homes, as you guys can see as we're driving through here, but still pretty quaint and nice. You can actually find some fairly affordable homes in the downtown Eagle area. There's some homes in here that I've seen for $450,000, $500,000. There's some townhomes that I've seen for less than $400,000. When they come on the market, usually they're gone pretty quick if they are that low of a price point. But in a lot of these older neighborhoods, kind of like the one we just drove through, it's not just, huge mansions and $2 million homes in Eagle. There's still some affordable homes. You just have to be okay with the fact that you're going to have, a 20-year-old home that might need some updating. And you can find homes in the $400,000-$500,000 in the downtown Eagle area. They're not going to be the biggest. They might be, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, but it is an option. That's, I think, important for you guys to know is it's not just this stereotypical $1 million home value. You can't afford to live in Eagle. If Eagle is a place, after driving through here, after visiting, that you're like, no, Eagle, I love so much. I really want to live in Eagle, but my budget is, $650,000. Know that it is possible. You just may have to sacrifice on the home itself. So it's more of a priority thing. Is the home more important, or is Eagle more important, or going down the road and living in Star? Is that okay to get a little bit better home? Because one of the big things, and I've had this happen with a couple of clients, but as we get towards the end of this video, we'll be kind of on the border of Star and Eagle. And you can literally buy the same exact home 1 mile apart, but one has an Eagle address and one has a Star address. And you're going to be, depending on the size of the home, around $100,000 to $200,000 in price difference. So keep that in mind, that like just a mile down the road, if you're living on the western side of Eagle, that you are paying for the name Eagle, which I think brings up part of a good point in Eagle. And there is a little bit of that status. So living in Eagle, there is a little bit of being able to just say, I live in Eagle, and kind of living by that. And this is the first part that I would say is more of that debatable. People might get sensitive, but the reality of Eagle is living here my entire life. Eagle High School was always our rivals for sports and education and friends. I was friends with a lot of people at Eagle High School, but the culture even growing up were that our Eagle friends, or the people in Eagle, they had that kind of status. They had a little bit more, you knew that they had money, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. And as I always say this in Eagle, is the best way to describe it is, and it's not everybody, I'm just saying in general, is when you're in Eagle, you kind of know that people have money, right? They're driving a nicer car, they're dressed a certain way, they look a certain way, and there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit different atmosphere. It's not quite as down to earth as some of the other suburbs. And obviously there's pockets of Eagle that's not the case at all. There's people in Eagle that are absolutely amazing, but just to give you guys a general feel of the people, the culture, that's kind of what you're going to get out here in the Eagle area. Now, you can see we haven't been driving long and we're already past the downtown Eagle area. We're still on Eagle Road, but you get beautiful parts of Eagle like this where you do feel that smaller town. So now you guys get to see kind of the smaller town side of it, where I say it's a smaller town feel with bigger city amenities. So you have this kind of country feel with trees, more open spaces. You have a lot more land and communities in Eagle with, 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, 2 acre. Up here on the right is a new community with 5 acre lots. And that's an important piece for you guys to know, is you have options for that. And the city of Eagle is actually going to a place to where they will not approve communities if the houses are too close together, which does give the entire valley, or the entire Eagle area, a nice feel, right? Not being close to your neighborhoods. I hear it a lot. I don't want it to feel like California. I don't want to feel like I'm on top of everybody. And you guys can see with where we're driving now, you kind of get that feel. But the other side that I wanted to show you guys in Eagle, with that community, which is just right over here to the left, if you guys pull up any map on Zillow, satellite imagery, and you go all the way down Eagle Road, you will see this community because it is massive, because they're 5 acre lots. But the point that I'm bringing up is that there's $10 million, $12 million houses. Just the lots in that community are $3 million. So that is the other side of Eagle, is that you have the most expensive homes in the entire state and valley. A lot of them are in Eagle, which is amazing. They're really cool homes. I always love seeing them, but it just shows that other side and to kind of continue to paint that picture. Now, this back road that we're on right now, this can get you from Dry Creek Ranch, which is where we're going, all the way to Star. And it's one of those nice back streets that can kind of avoid the traffic, give you a little bit more beauty, and get you around town. And these are the things that when you start to live in places and be a part of the community, you obviously learn the little tricks and places to go to avoid the traffic. So, and I want to bring this up because what I tell people a lot, and when people come to visit and just scout the areas, I try to tell them to go in certain places and drive down certain roads like I'm doing right now that you would be driving if you lived here, right? So if I would have plugged in Dry Creek Ranch in the GPS, it would have taken us down the highway, over to another highway to get there 2 minutes faster. But if you live here, you know that this is a better drive, it's easier, there's not as much traffic, and it's really just about the same distance. And so being able to see these things and actually experience what it would be like to live here is super important, because if you're visiting and you're just driving down the main roads, you might think Eagle is just, oh my gosh, there's so much more traffic than I would have expected. It's busy, there's always cars. But if you were actually living in Eagle, this would be the roads that you would probably be taking. And so you actually get a different feel from living here, right? So compare what we're driving on now to what we kind of drove on before we came into downtown. Now, again, more of these, acreage communities, you start to get in the foothills here. So there's a number of homes, not necessarily neighborhoods, but in the foothills of Eagle, you have a lot of acreage properties, 5 acres, 3 acres. They're communities, but they don't really have an HOA. They're more just a string of houses along the foothills. Not too much new construction up in the foothills of Eagle, on that area at least. But there are options for resale homes if you're looking for things like that. Now we're coming up on Highway 55. So this is where Highway 55 goes to McCall, and it actually goes to Dry Creek Ranch. So you guys will obviously see us come into Dry Creek Ranch, but this is one of the other main highways that gets you to and from, the mountains, Dry Creek Ranch, Hidden Springs, which is out here kind of in the Eagle area. And then we're going to come back and go to Winco, and where there's a proposed Costco and some other amenities in the Eagle area. But you guys can start to see the different feel of where we're at now in Eagle. So I talk about this a lot, but within each suburb, there is many suburbs within those suburbs, right? So if you guys have watched the Meridian video, there's a big difference between Central Meridian, South Meridian, and North Meridian. In Eagle, it's similar, right? So we're in Dry Creek Ranch now, and you can see there's foothills, there's mountains, there's topography. It's more open. And as we get into Dry Creek Ranch, you'll see that even more, because you get to see the mountains with the pine trees and have these views. Whereas where we came in, you have more of the river feel, right? It's flat. You kind of have a little bit of foothills, but it's really flat with big, huge, mature trees. And I know for some of you guys, when you say I want a scenic view, you mean mountains. For some of you guys, you want trees and big, mature landscaping. And there's going to be different preferences there. So knowing the different parts of the suburb is actually really important, and being able to drive them and get that feel. And every suburb, Eagle is one of those ones where it's kind of medium size, right? So there's not 3 main areas, although technically where we end this video would be the newest part of Eagle, and it'll be a completely different feel, completely different neighborhood. Like I said, the neighborhood we end in is going to be, it's the nicest neighborhood just looks wise in the entire valley. It kind of takes your breath away with how beautiful it is. And as we end up the valley, you guys will get to see as it gets later. Right now it's 2:35. It'll probably be 3:30 by the time we get over there. You guys will get to see more of the traffic, more of the downsides of Eagle, I guess. Now, this view right here as you're coming up, I mean, you can't beat this. You can't find this in many places in the Boise area. And we are in Dry Creek Ranch. So Dry Creek Ranch is built by Boise Hunter Homes, which is a good builder, but it has its issues. And those are little details that I would talk about on phone calls. But overall, just so you know, it's built by Boise Hunter Homes. You have things like the community center right here. There's two community centers in Dry Creek Ranch. You have 3 different sections. So you have the hills, which is to the right of us right now, which is in the foothills. So you're up in the mountains. There's some lots up there that overlook the entire mountain range. Then you have the section to our left, which is the creeks. So you're in the bottom, you're in Dry Creek. It's literally a dry creek is what the name of the creek is called. And it's more flat. And then you have the estates, which the estates is the section of Dry Creek Ranch that has, half acre lots. So a little bit more space, a little bit bigger houses. So a little bit difference within this community, but overall, just this area of Dry Creek Ranch, as you guys can see, is best known for having the foothill views, feeling like its own little kind of city community up here in the foothills of Eagle and Boise. You also have a community farm. There's an equestrian center out here. So if you have horses, you can have your horses at the equestrian center. We just are about to pass the second community center. So there's another pool, another community center. But the community garden here, you can actually sign up and have fresh fruits and vegetables dropped off at your front door. They have a full-time farmer, so he manages the entire garden and farm. It's not just like a little, community garden. It's like a full 2-acre, 3-acre farm that they do for the whole community. So lots of cool things about it. Dry Creek Ranch is also often called the Little California, obviously because there's a lot of people from California that moved here. I would say you start getting on the more conservative side, especially for Eagle standards out here in Dry Creek Ranch for whatever reason. There's just more American flags, there's more Trump signs, there's more of all of that. But you also get one thing I hear from a lot of people about Dry Creek Ranch is just the amount of kids out here. There's a big family environment in the Dry Creek Ranch area. Not to say that there's not, people who are retired or older or don't have kids, but just in general, that's kind of the more of the feel that you get when you're out here in Dry Creek. To the left, that's the estate, so you can kind of see how much bigger some of the houses are. I'll drive through the community a little bit just to give you a feel, but overall, we're just driving through some of these communities to just give you a general sense. And also, looking at some of the houses, driving through some of these communities kind of can show you the differences in what the homes look like, kind of the community feels, because it's different in Eagle compared to Meridian, compared to Star, what some of these communities and neighborhoods feel like and what the homes look like. So on the right are bigger lots, on the left are a little bit smaller, but overall you can kind of see big, beautiful, amazing homes out here. Looking this way, you obviously don't have the mountains like you do looking behind us, but overall, this area of Eagle, one of the most popular. It's been one of the most popular. And another good point about this, because we're not going to drive to it in this video, but Valnova is on the opposite side of Eagle in the foothills. But the reason I bring up Valnova is when Dry Creek Ranch was first built, it was, way out here. It was too far. No one was really going to be that, it wasn't going to be that popular. People didn't really think much of it. But as time has gone on, this has been one of the top real estate markets areas in the entire Treasure Valley. And the home values here have just skyrocketed more so than the rest of the valley. And so I bring that up to tell you guys that there's some guessing, there's a little bit of, educated guessing when the real estate market side of things comes to, if that's an important piece for you guys. But looking at a place like Valnova or Avamore, which is just a little bit farther up, it's a little bit more into the mountains. You get a little bit more of that mountainy feel. Some of these areas, there's lots of details to talk about, but right now they're the kind of newer Dry Creek Ranch areas. So they're areas that as of now, people might be looking at and being like, it's too far, it's too this, but it didn't take long for Dry Creek Ranch to be one of the top most desirable places in the entire valley. If you take a left here, it takes you to Hidden Springs, which is its own town, really. It has its own school, it has its own restaurant, coffee shop, there's a dentist office there, there's a little community center, like downtown area. That area is a little bit older, it's a little bit closer to the Boise area. We obviously don't have time to drive over there because it is kind of its own thing. But want you guys to know where things are at as we're driving around so you guys can continue to kind of put these pieces together. The other thing with the community center, as I drive by it again, is there's not that many communities in the entire Treasure Valley that have kind of, you don't need to leave your community, right? Where they have pools, and this one has a gym, which is why I bring it up, has all of the amenities. It's really Dry Creek Ranch. Valnova will be one of them eventually. You have Valor and Cuna. Outside of that, there's only a handful more that like truly have everything you need for entertainment, restaurants. Like the one in Valor is going to have indoor pickleball courts, a full gym, multiple pools, a spa area, right? So Dry Creek Ranch is one of those few areas that has the amenity-rich side of things. So good for you guys to know about that in Dry Creek Ranch. The rest of the Treasure Valley and Eagle is more so just, is it a nice area and does it have a pool and a community center? Now, as we get going back into Eagle, so if we would have kept going the other way, we would have gone into McCall. This direction, we're heading back into Eagle, and we're going to drive by a Winco, a Home Depot, and where a proposed Costco has been. And so it's another little area, and it'll give you guys an idea for like the Dry Creek Ranch or even some of the foothill communities, another live video of how far these areas are from the amenities that you would be using, you know, on a weekly basis. And that's another, you know, thing to keep track of during this video. Go back, and even if you don't watch the whole thing, but like go from, okay, when we were downtown Eagle, look at the time code in the video, and then go to when we got to Dry Creek Ranch, how much time had passed. That's a live update on how far drive times are to things with some of these communities. When we went from Target to downtown Eagle, how long were we recording? Were you listening to me talk on your TV, which still just is so weird, and I'm glad and thankful for all of you guys who watch these videos. But you guys will see that Dry Creek Ranch, while it is farther out, everybody's gonna have different preferences, right? So with any of these suburbs, like we talked about earlier in the video on how, you know, Eagle is a little bit farther from Cuna or Nampa, it's actually a little bit closer to Boise than maybe some of the other suburbs. And there's not a Costco here, right? So you have to go to North Meridian. Like, how far is it from there? Everybody's going to have different preferences. Or even when I'm talking about traffic, some of you guys are probably laughing when I said, you know, this is kind of more traffic heavy as we're coming into Eagle. And some of you guys are like, yeah, that traffic, I don't want that traffic. So it's all a personal preference, and we're just trying to give you guys the most information that we can as we do these videos. Okay, now as we're continuing, I'm gonna pull off into the Winco so we can kind of hop back on the map and show you guys where we've been driving and where it is in relation to everything else. But as we come into this area, this is the border of Boise and Eagle. And so to give you guys kind of an idea of kind of where we're at. So from here, we're 10 to 20 minutes into downtown Boise, depending on how bad traffic is. But you just go down State Street and turn left up here. Again, you guys can see the trees up out front right now, just the beauty. You have Eagle Bike Park right here. So there's a ton of trails up in the foothills over here. The Eagle Bike Park is for mountain biking. So for those of you guys who like to mountain bike and hike trails, that's one thing that's just right here. You can see how close it is to Dry Creek Ranch, but it's also, you know, 5-10 minutes into central Eagle. As you start getting farther west in Eagle, so closer to Star, as you guys will see where we drive after Winco, you start getting farther away from the things that people often want to live in Eagle for, right? So the Boise River, the foothills, the hiking, the mountain biking. This area that we've driven through so far is kind of the areas that if you really want to be super close to those things, this is the area that you'd probably want to be looking at. Whereas as we go farther west, you're going to be closer to Star, which there's not really a ton of hiking towards Star and West Eagle. You still have access to like Eagle Island and some parks in Star for Boise River access, but not quite the same as you have now. And I'm actually not going to stop in Winco because I want to get to the Boise River Greenbelt so we can actually just show you some of those things we're talking about. But Winco, commercial tire, there's a car wash, there's a Home Depot right to our left right here, and that's kind of the end of Eagle. So now we're going to go from one end of Eagle all the way to the other side of Eagle and give you guys the tour of State Street or Highway 44 so you guys can kind of experience what it's like, because this is the road that most people are going to be driving on if you're commuting into Boise, or really if you want to get anywhere in Eagle. This is like a main road that you will come across most of the time unless you're taking those back roads. like we talked about. On the left, you have some apartments with some water features. A big thing in Eagle is ponds and man-made lakes in a lot of the neighborhoods. There's a Lifetime Fitness up here on the left, which is the only one as of now. There's one coming to Meridian, which if you've watched the video, you guys know where that's at. There's a ton of coffee shops in here. There's a Panera Bread, a Mobetta's, there's a Chick-fil-A to our right here. So there's all of the things you would want. There's a Izumi, there's a Starbucks, there's more of a local kind of wine bar / coffee bar in here. You have, I'd say, healthier options in here. There's surprisingly in Eagle, going back to that more active lifestyle in Eagle, there's not really a ton of, McDonald's, Taco Bell's, Wendy's, fast food restaurants. There's actually, I think, more in Kuna than there is in Eagle. To give you guys an idea of, I guess, what's the value in Eagle? Like, what do the city planners value? What restaurants, what do they want the culture to look like? But even as we're sitting here, like, just look around and you see like even these little concrete walls that they have up over here by Panera Bread. That's something that only Eagle would pay the money to put those extra things in. There's that higher level, the nicer landscaping to the left, even the signs that, show that it's Mobetta's, Panera Bread, Chick-fil-A, Lifetime Fitness. Even those are a little bit elevated. So just more items for you guys to kind of keep an eye out for. Now we're coming up on, kind of where the Greenbelt area would be in Eagle here. And this is an area that a lot of people often stay, especially people who are looking at living in the Eagle area. So you have Bardnay, you have 2 or 3 hotels right around this Boise River area here in Eagle. And you really can't go wrong with any of the hotels. And part of that is just because we're in Eagle. So obviously, everything is just a little bit more elevated. You also have a number of restaurants in here. Bardnay is a very popular one. Poins, when I went there, it was a little overrated, but a lot of people love that. It's more of your kind of like a crave. There's more of a luxury seafood Mexican restaurant around here. So lots of higher end restaurants. There's a small hospital here by Homewood Suites. So you have some medical care, which I think is important to talk about. Is Eagle, you have a small hospital here, but for your major hospitals, you do still have to drive into either Meridian or Boise. And those drive times are around 20 minutes or so. So for those of you that major hospitals are an important piece of where you live in the valley, know that Eagle is a little bit farther away from the major hospitals. There's still a number of small kind of sister hospitals for your MRIs, your small checkups, your urgent cares are everywhere. But for the major things and your specialists, you're going to be driving into the city of Boise itself. Now we're back to kind of where we started, and then I'm going to pull into the Boise River. But this is where State Street and Eagle Road meet again. And so again, just keeping an eye on traffic. Now we're at 2:50 p.m. on a Thursday. So to give you guys kind of an idea, we're not at peak traffic times, but there's still a little bit of waiting. And definitely keep an eye on the left on Eagle Road, just how many cars. And I want you guys to keep an eye on it so that if you're watching multiple videos of these suburb tours, you can kind of compare and contrast what you're seeing from one suburb to the next. But we're coming up on the Boise River. You can just pull right off Eagle Road here in a second. We're going to hop out, go walk around the Boise River a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the floodplains. I know that's a big question you get, some of the tax rates, some of the cost of living, some of the insurance rates out here, because there's some big differences in Eagle compared to other suburbs. So let's hop out, look at the Boise River, and look at some beautiful scenery. Okay, now we're on the Boise River Greenbelt. It goes miles that way and miles this way. But you can see, Eagle Road is right there. So in Eagle, it's like in the city, right? You have quick access. One thing I want to differentiate between Eagle and some of the other suburbs like Star, Kuna, Middleton is I feel like the outdoor generalized atmosphere in Eagle is I kind of call them like hipster outdoors people, right? Like you put your sports bra and yoga pants on, or your nice biking shorts, and you go mountain biking and hiking in the foothills, or you might be fly fishing. Versus Star and Kuna is going to be your more outdoorsy, you got your motorcycles, your dirt bike, you got your ATVs, you got your trailers, and you're going to go out camping at BLM land, right? That's kind of the differentiator between Eagle and some of the other suburbs to give you guys kind of that feel. But as we're walking through this, you can't deny, again, just the beauty of Eagle, right? Having access to this as you drive home, you can stop at the Boise River, go for a quick walk, Right here to the right, you have Pig Latin, which is an amazing restaurant here. Another one of those organic, gluten-free, all health foods with really good food. So lots of options like that in the Eagle area. Now, outside of the outdoor space, well, before I go on to cost of living in Eagle, just generalized cost of living, this right here is where I proposed to my wife behind you guys. So beautiful area, means a lot to me in this space. You'll often see people out here doing, senior photos, prom photos. It's a popular area to come and just kind of enjoy the beauty. Now, when it comes to just generalized cost of living in the Eagle area, the first thing is obviously the home prices. We've talked about it, but the home prices here are a lot more expensive. You have a lot higher median value here. Like I said, though, there's some misconceptions with still being able to find more affordable pricing. The other part of the cost of living that I mentioned earlier was the taxes in Eagle. So in general, most suburbs in Ada County are going to be at about 0.6, 0.7%, and deduct $125,000 for your homeowner's exemption from the value of the home. But in Eagle, there's a few communities that I get questions on a lot, and that's the CID tax. So the CID tax is for new developments, and really it only applies to Avamore and Valnova, which are the two new master plan communities that are kind of outside city limits. And so they have this CID tax to essentially help pay for the development that's needed to get the infrastructure out there, the water lines, the electrical lines, the roads. And so it helps pay for that development cost. On average, it basically doubles your property taxes. And so Valnova, Avamore, they're beautiful areas, and you get a lot of amenities. You get a lot of things when you live in those two areas, but you do pay a little bit higher tax rate. But Idaho taxes are obviously lower, so it still keeps your taxes lower than most of you guys are paying in other states, but it's an important piece to know about. As far as the rest of cost of living, it's going to be about the same no matter what suburb we're in. Whether it's your electric bill, your water bill, trash, it's the grocery stores, the restaurants, they're all relatively the same. As an example, Crave out here in Eagle, very nice restaurant, one of my favorites. You can get a very, very nice meal that is one of the best. Like you would consider it a, fine dining restaurant. You can pay $20 to $30 a plate at a very nice restaurant. So it's not that much more elevated in the Eagle area. That I think is really all I would want to go over on cost of living. There's obviously a lot more things to talk about in more detail, but that's the basics that I would say you guys need to know for Eagle in the suburb. The biggest thing was walking along this green belt and just giving you guys that experience, that visual of what all of this looks like, being able to just come down here after work, going to dinner at Pig Latin, and then walking the greenbelt, going to Bardenay, and then walking the greenbelt. You can't get this in any other suburb. Boise, you can get it in every suburb. You're never gonna be able to get what Eagle can provide for the beauty and outdoor landscape. Now let's hop back in the car, show you guys more of the traffic, more of the kind of main areas. We're gonna head, as you guys saw, to some of the most popular neighborhoods in the Eagle area and just talk more about the culture, what it's like to feel here, live here, but also just give you guys, again, that visual and feel like you're actually touring these suburbs, not just getting information and kind of guessing what it would feel like to live in Eagle, Idaho. Okay, we're back in Eagle. I want you guys to look forward right now and see that huge line of cars. We're starting to get into the busier time of Eagle. And now we're gonna head in a completely different direction, as you guys kind of saw on the map where we're heading. But the other side of Eagle, I guess you can say, where it's all the newer communities, you have a little bit different feel, you're closer to Star. And as we're driving to West Eagle, I wanna kind of tell a story of some of our best friends, their personality type, the type of people they are, and why after showing them the whole valley and them even living here for a little bit, they ended up choosing Eagle in a more affordable home. And I think it'll kind of encapsulate the types of people or the types of things that people are looking for when they drive an Eagle. And as I'm doing that, still just keeping an eye on, what's around us, what it feels like, the traffic, the cars that are driving by, the scenery. So you get to see this as I kind of talk about my friends. So Andrew and Rose, they have been one of our best friends for a long time. They were looking in all the different suburbs, and even though they could have bought, bigger, nicer houses and, Cuna and Meridian and Star, they ultimately ended up buying a house kind of by the Winco that we drove by. and living in Eagle, even though it was an older, a little bit smaller house, still a beautiful home, but it was in that older home for more affordable price that I talked about when we were driving through Central Eagle. And Andrew and Rose are your friends that are super social. They can talk to anybody. They love being around people. They want to go out and do things. In the afternoons, they're the type of people that they'll get off work and go for a bike ride, and then they'll go to the gym, and then they'll go hang out in the backyard. Like, they want to be outside. They want to be in the mountains. They want to be taking the kids for a walk, and they want to be close to all the things they need to do. They ultimately chose Eagle for exactly those reasons. So this is where I find that people that choose Eagle, oftentimes, not always, but a lot of people like Andrew and Rose are more social. They love to be in the outdoors, and they love to be close to all of those things to do. The unfortunate side of it, though, and I think an important piece for those of you who maybe have family or friends who have lived in the Boise area as you move here, or I get a lot of people where parents and kids are moving here at the same time. When they moved to Eagle, we went from seeing them weekly or bi-weekly to very rarely did we get to hang out with them. And part of that was because we live in Kuna and they live in Eagle, and so that's an important thing to think about too, is if you do have people that here, or you are moving here with family, that 45-minute drive from one side of the valley to the other, whether it's Eagle and Kuna and Star, Nampa and Meridian, like all of those things, you just start seeing people a little bit less. But with Andrew and Rose, they chose that more affordable, older home that needed a little bit more updating, but it fit their needs because they valued the socialization, the outdoors, and being able to go mountain biking or regular biking or hiking. And that's the type of people that I see who look in Eagle, is they value that beauty, that outdoor space on the affordable side. The other type of people that I see who live in Eagle is budget is not as much of a problem. They love all of the things that I talked about. They especially just love the beauty of Eagle, the trees, the neighborhoods, even the homes out here. Even though it's more expensive, that comes with more expensive finishes in the home. So a lot of builders that build in Eagle and other suburbs, I'll talk to them, and when they build in Eagle, they have a different standard. Their base homes come with more upgrades because that's just what is kind of required in Eagle, other than one builder, which I'll talk about. So this other type of person is somebody where budget is not as much of a problem, and obviously then you can live in Eagle if you want to. But it's important to note how Eagle is a little bit farther from the other areas that are definitely becoming more of a popular place to live, like Meridian, Star, but especially Kuna being one of the most popular places lately. And we'll have a video coming out on Kuna, and I'll talk about a lot of those reasons why. Now, we're on State Street heading towards West Eagle. On the left is Two Rivers and Mace River Ranch, which are some of the nicest neighborhoods in Eagle, a little bit older, but that more mature tree kind of landscaping. Going back to what I talked about, where you get the people who like the trees and the Boise River, and then you get the people who like the mountain views. And it's a different type of preference, right? There's a handful of other communities that will kind of pass by. One of them is Riverstone. The other one is Bald Eagle Point, although Bald Eagle Point is sold out. Bald Eagle Point is, if you guys are looking at Eagle, you've probably heard of it, is right off this highway. And so one of the downsides to that is this is a main highway. Obviously, you guys can see we're driving a little bit faster than we have been the rest of the video. So you can hear the cars driving by, you can hear the trucks driving by, which is not ideal, especially if you're wanting to live in a place like Eagle with that kind of serenity, small town feel. To be able to have to hear the highway going by is not as ideal. The other community, Riverstone, it's actually tucked away enough that you don't really hear about it, although it's very central. So one of the other things as we get into this west side of Eagle, as you guys saw on the map, is it's very close to North Meridian. So you may not have the vicinity to Central Eagle, the downtown area, the Boise River, and all of those restaurants. But now you kind of get the best of both worlds while giving up that, walkability or 5-minute commutes. You have the 10-minute commutes into North Meridian, and then the 10-minute commutes into Eagle, and then the 10-minute commutes into Star. In North Meridian, if you guys have seen the video, you obviously see the Wenco, the Fred Meyer, the Costco is the big one. There's not a Costco in Eagle, so a lot of people will be going to that Costco in North Meridian. Now we're on the main highway. Like I said, if you live out here, a lot of times you'll take the back roads. You won't always take this main highway when you're actually living in Eagle. But a lot of these neighborhoods we're gonna pass by, they're all fairly similar. Again, the big trees, a little bit bigger lot in that $900,000 to $2 million range, depending on the home. There's also starting to be some newer neighborhoods that are a little bit closer together, and I'm actually going to drive through one of them as we get towards some of these communities out here in West Eagle. And they're connected. Eagle High School is right here, which brings up a good point, is a lot of people that really value education. I find a lot of them end up in Eagle because they really want the best education they can for their kids. And I hear lots of amazing things about the Eagle School District. It's not the Eagle School District, it's still all West Ada, but Eagle schools that just do things a little bit different. And with that, we're going to turn right now. You start getting into some construction. They have a main road that I would want to take completely blocked off right now. So I'm going to just drive through some of these communities to give you guys more of a feel of the different community types. As we do that, we're passing right now by Innovate Academy, one of the private schools in Eagle. Really cool private school out here in Eagle. It has kind of an entrepreneurial mindset. So like a Shark Tank pitch for a business idea was one of their year projects. They have where when you first get to class at the beginning of the year, you get an allotted amount of money and you have to pay rent to rent your desk. As the year goes on, you can buy your desk. You can actually start buying other students' desks and then rent those desks out to the students. So some fun things like that. There's a few private schools in the Eagle area. We're driving to, these are two communities that are kind of connected together. So there's one on the left, which is mostly Zach Evans Homes, beautiful builder. He builds beautiful homes, but the lots are a little bit smaller. And then I'm gonna take a right and you'll see some of the lots in here that are a little bit bigger. But Whitehurst is the Zach Evans community in here, and you can see a little bit more modern, a little bit, you can just tell the homes in here are a little bit more upscale, even looking at the backyard of this home in front of us. And then as we drive by these homes on the right, you guys will get to see I'd say classical, just Eagle type homes, right? And these are the new construction ones. These are some of the smaller, kind of more tight knit Eagle new construction communities. So in contrast to what we saw in Dry Creek Ranch, is just a little bit different, but you do get a mix of everything. The other thing that I kind of hinted at was the builder that hasn't really upgraded their standards in Eagle, but is just mind blowing to me. The prices of Eagle homes, how well they've done and how they've stayed high. They remain high. It's always good, even in a downturn. Eagle still kind of remains at value. You don't lose your value as quickly. Is CBH Homes. So for those of you who know about CBH Homes, they're the biggest builder in Idaho. They tend to build way more affordable homes. They're a solid builder, but the finishes are just cheaper because they're a more affordable builder. The cabinets don't look as nice. They'll have laminate countertops. The finishes are just very, very basic, and they're a very good starter home. But they have a community in Eagle just about 1.5 miles north of us right now. And they're selling homes at $900,000 to $1.2 million, and they look still very basic. They have, some quartz countertops, but overall the finishes are still the same. And this goes back to that point that I kind of talked to you guys about, where just for having the Eagle name and your address, you just are paying that fee. You're paying the fee to be in Eagle. And that is a neighborhood where you're paying for a bigger home, lower finishes, but to remain within budget, right? If Eagle is really important to you and you need a big home, but you don't want to spend, $2 million on a more luxury 3,200 or 4,000 square foot home, you can look at a builder like CBH. Toll Brothers is also starting to build some more luxury homes out here too. So you do have a few options on the more affordable builder side, but you're still going to be at 800, 900,000 and up for the most part. Unless you go into the resale market, which we're going to stop by Legacy, which is a very beautiful neighborhood here. And then we'll finish out in that secret neighborhood. That is one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the whole valley. But Legacy is one of those neighborhoods where you can find resale homes in there, townhomes, 600,000-700,000 that aren't on the water, or they're not, 3,000 plus square feet. You can find some decent homes in really nice neighborhoods in Eagle, still at fairly affordable prices. Legacy is been known as one of the nicer or more popular communities in Eagle because it has a little 3-hole golf course in the community that's just for the community. It has amenities, tennis courts, pool, tons of walking paths. You'll see how beautiful the landscaping is when we get to drive through it here in a second. And it also has man-made lakes, so a lot of waterfront property. So you find this a lot in Eagle, and you're starting to find this more in Star, but in Eagle especially, there's a lot of communities with waterfront properties where there's, a dozen handmade lakes, and your backyard is beaches with rocks, and you can go paddle boarding. Some of them have fishing. I know in Two Rivers, when I was growing up, I used to sneak onto the ponds and fish for bass and catch really big bass and then get kicked out every once in a while. But you have a lot of those cool amenities in these communities that you can't find in any other suburb really. Is these types of communities with these man-made lakes. The other thing that's coming attached to Legacy, which is becoming more popular, I've got a lot more questions about it, is Eagle Dale by Tresidio Home. So it'll be attached to Legacy. It'll have a similar feel, but that's another, more luxury new construction neighborhood. And if you look at Tresidio's website and you go to Eagle Dale versus Kuna versus Star versus some of their communities in Meridian, you'll see how much higher of a price that Eagle brings compared to the rest. So trying to give you guys, full overview of everything. There's a few more popular new construction and resale communities we're going to drive by. Homestead is to the right, and you're going to have some others we'll drive by here in a second. But now we're turning left into Legacy. So this is their main entrance. Beautiful, big entryway. You got the lakes with the waterfalls. You got the big monument. And you'll see here in a second, we're going to drive right by the golf course. So this is another different type of neighborhood. And this is where we start getting into, I would say, more of the river folks, right? The people who like more of that river feel, just the beauty of landscaping and trees and everything that comes with that versus, you obviously can't really look around right now and see mountains. So that is the different feel in here. And in Legacy, there's not really any new construction left. So this is a resale market, but it gives you guys another good opportunity, another good feel, what it feels like to live here, what the environment's like when driving through. And you'll see some townhomes and smaller, kind of single family type homes in Legacy. Legacy is also attached to another neighborhood that was built by Coleman Homes, which is now owned by Toll Brothers. So it's essentially a Toll Brothers home. So a little bit more affordable, your starter home community attached to Legacy. And then as we drive through the main heart of Legacy, you'll get to see a little bit of the homes. But the big thing is really just the landscaping, the feel, and then being able to watch this video versus Meridian versus Kuna versus Star and look at the communities that we go through and compare like how different are even just the neighborhoods. Going back to kind of narrowing things down as we go in this video. And I talk to clients about this a lot. I always want to start with Boise first, or Idaho first. When you guys are moving, is Idaho the right place to live first, right? Does the culture, does the weather, does the taxes, do the bigger picture things fit first? Then it's moving down to the suburbs. So where in Boise, which suburb is going to be the best fit for you? These things matter more than the actual home itself. And part of picking which suburb is obviously taking into account your budget, right? If you have a $400,000 budget, then it's not even worth talking about Eagle or even Meridian to some extent, right? So, but it's picking the suburb, getting the feel. When you move here, that's going to be the most important part, is on if the move to Idaho is actually worth it. I've seen so many people that they moved to Boise, they either have an agent that wasn't advising them or they didn't have an agent. They just kind of went on a whim and they just picked the house that they liked, not necessarily the suburb that they liked first. And they end up hating their life in Idaho. But as you guys come out and visit, and as you guys are able to watch these videos, back to back or week to week, you can see how different each suburb is and how different Eagle is from Meridian. Like, it would be fun for you guys to watch Eagle and then go watch, Nampa, like just how different they are. I always talk to my wife and friends and clients when I go to the store in Nampa versus Eagle. The grocery stores are a very good place to really quickly just be like, wow, it feels like I'm in a completely different place. And even though Boise's not a very big community, there's a very big contrast in between each suburb. Then once you go from suburb, then you start looking at your communities, right? So now we're in communities, we were just in Eagle, now we're in communities Legacy, and we'll go to a few others here in a second. And then eventually you kind of pick your house. So it's narrowing things down as you go. Now this stretch right here in Legacy is kind of, and the landscaping is not even done right now. So keep that in mind, that this is about the ugliest it looks here in Legacy. They take out and change out their landscaping 4 times a year, depending on the season. So in the spring versus the summer versus the fall versus the winter, there's a different landscaping put into Legacy, and it's just absolutely beautiful. They usually have hanging plants on some of these posts, these big bowls, they'll have big vines coming out, and you have a big green belt access that you can walk through the whole community. And then right here to the right, you'll start to see a little bit of the lakes that some of these houses are on. So you have, big beach backyards, things like that. This is your kind of Eagle vibe, right? You're not gonna get this in very many places. There's only one community, 1 or 2 that I can really think of in other parts of the valley. There's a couple in Meridian, there's one in Kuna, and there's one in Star that have similar feels, but it's just not to the level of Legacy or where we're gonna end off at, which is one of the just coolest, most beautiful neighborhoods in the entire valley. Now we're hanging a right here. The road that was closed is actually Linder Road, so that'll connect into Meridian, into Costco and Fred Meyer, and then it's actually going to connect up to Valnova. So it'll be a good thoroughway, but you're pretty close to Meridian, you're pretty close to Star right now. As we're heading up kind of towards west Eagle, northwest Eagle, kind of towards Valnova, we're heading towards Valnova right now. You have a few more communities. You still have Legacy. You have Eagle Ridge by Pacific Lifestyle Homes. Cool little community. You have up to half-acre lots in there for a really affordable price. Pacific Lifestyle Homes has some great pricing. Shell Brothers is new to the valley, and they're building out here in Eagle mostly. They're from the East Coast. I get the question, how is Shell Brothers? A lot of people on our conversations were talking about the truth of how good these builders are, how good these communities are. Shell Brothers, I don't know yet, so it's to be determined. Move forward at your own risk, I guess you could say. Millstone Farms right here, another great little community out here. The Toll Brothers community on the right. And then the CBH community I talked about earlier is just a little bit farther up here and to the right. The Parade of Homes is going on right now, and if you look at the Parade of Homes, you'll notice that most of the Parade of Homes are in Eagle, and that's for a reason too. That community I talked about at the beginning of the video on Eagle Road that has the $10 million houses, one of them is a $12 million house by Highland Homes, and again, you're not going to find a $12 million home in any other suburb unless it's on 200 acres or whatever it is. But the other part of this section of Eagle that I wanted to talk to you guys about is you do start getting a little bit of the foothills, right? It's not quite like Dry Creek Ranch. To the right, you can see the mountains, and then you do have a little bit of foothills. This neighborhood that we're gonna end up in right here in a second, it is building a parking lot, and it has access to BLM land, so there will be hiking paths, and it will connect over the top to Valnova. So Valnova and the neighborhood we're heading into now is 2 neighborhoods that you do get a similar feel to Dry Creek Ranch and Valnova, and this one being, newer neighborhoods in the Eagle area. The difference between the one we're going into now versus Valnova is Valnova has homes from $500,000 all the way up to $2 and $3 million. The neighborhood we're about to go into now, the lowest priced home in there is $1.2 million. After that, you're pretty much bottomed out at like 1.7. So these homes in here are very, very expensive, and it takes, you obviously have to have the budget for it. But again, even if you can't afford a neighborhood like this, it's still good to see this to kind of get a feel for Eagle, what it's like, what the people like that are, buying these homes or living in these neighborhoods, to get that kind of culture feel for each suburb, because that's really an important piece. So we're in Terraview right now, and I'm going to hang a right and just show you some of these houses because they're just beautiful to look at. And you guys can obviously see there's waterfalls every 10 feet in here. You have the very upgraded lights in here. The landscaping, again, is not fully finished right now, and it's only going to get better from what you guys are seeing. But this is an elevated version of Legacy. So the same developer that just developed the neighborhood we drove through is developing Terraview out here in Northwest Eagle. And this kind of encapsulates that Eagle feel, that Eagle environment the types of things that you'll find in Eagle, with the caveat of course, I talked to you guys about Central Eagle and some of the older neighborhoods. There's still options for everybody, but just to give you guys a really generalized feel of these different neighborhoods, these different types of homes and culture and people and wealth. Because I mean, the amount of the socioeconomical demographic in each suburb matters a lot, right? Like that affects the type of people you're going to see, the environment you're going to live in, the quality of homes, how well they're taken care of. One thing about Eagle and Meridian and some of these suburbs is when you get people with more money, you often get people with more home pride. They take care of their homes better. The communities stay nicer longer. And in a neighborhood like this, obviously that's pretty obvious, but even in some of the other neighborhoods, you get that. So this encapsulates Eagle. I would say the other suburb that if Eagle doesn't work, that people go to is either Star or Meridian, but Meridian is one that has similar things, but it has a better mix and better price points. So I would go watch this video here. We do the exact same thing that we did in this video, but we go through Meridian, the biggest, most popular, or the first looked at suburb in the Boise, Idaho area. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you sticking with us this long.